Hello there, I'm Nick, and this is Portable, where we talk about the portable ports of console games. If you grew up in the era of 3D gaming taking its hold on the mainstream market of consoles, you might have run across a Cruis'n USA arcade cabinet at some point or another. I loved it as a kid, and reading back on it, I saw a few reviews call it the spiritual successor of Sega's Outrun, and I could see the comparison. It was fun in its own way. The game claimed it would be running on Ultra 64 hardware and that it would be a launch title for the system. Well, it turns out everything in that sentence was false. The Ultra 64 got renamed to the Nintendo 64, the game missed the launch window, and it certainly was not running anywhere near as nicely as the arcade version. Cruis'n games are always a fun little jaunt in the arcade game that would later become watered-down mediocre messes on the 64. And for the third game, Cruis'n Exotica, not only did they release a console version, they also brought it to the Game Boy Color. So it might come as no surprise to hear that this game is a boring little waste of time. You drive, you try to pass other cars, and you get to a finish line across tracks that have absolutely nothing going on. Now, to be fair, the engine is impressive for the Game Boy Color. That 3D effect and changing perspectives is really pushing this little system. And for that alone, it got me interested. I love games that push hardware, even if they end up being little more than tech demos. And in Exotica's case, that's really all you got. The problem with the Nintendo 64 version is that it strips out so much of the personality of the arcade games, which, when you get right down to it, is all that made those games stand out. I've always been more interested in what's happening around the track than the actual race itself in these games. And when the 64 version scales back on the spectacle, and then you have to translate that to a system that's 8 times less powerful, well, what can you really expect? Ironically enough, the most depowered version of the game, in its own way, is the most impressive. Like I said, they do some really cool tricks with the engine to give the game some emphasis on hills and other variances in the road. And as bare bones as it still races just fine. The vehicle selection is cute and you can pull off some tricks. It's alright, just not much more than that. That's really all I have to say, and if we ended things here, it'd just be a 2-minute video. So let's take a look at Cruis'n Velocity. There is also a Cruis'n game on the Game Boy Advance. It doesn't have Exotica in the title, but it seems to have its levels, and I'm not dedicating a whole episode to this thing, so we're just gonna cover it here. I had no idea this game even existed until I started doing some research for this episode, and boy howdy, do I understand why. This is a fascinating mess of a game. While it does have the classic Cruis'n sound clips and environments from Exotica, Velocity plays unlike any other game in the series. While the other Cruis'n games, like Outrun before them, have you race in basically a straight line, there's never really any sharp turns. You're usually staying at a constant pace unless you crash. In Velocity, however, you are doing nothing but turning, and most of these tracks are in tight corridors. The game uses the same graphics engine as Dark Arena, as the developer of that game did this one as well, making it one of those unique Game Boy Advance games that uses a 3D polygonal environment. They really took advantage of the 3D tech, as a lot of the challenge comes from staying on the course, not running into walls, and keeping your car from spinning out. It's different, it's unique, and it's pure trash. It just plays so bad. I mean, so bad! These levels don't feel like they're designed for cars, or I don't know, anything really. You'll run into things or go down a dead end or shoot off a ramp straight into water where you'll slowly sink in and then get placed right in front of the water again. Is that a pine tree growing out of the pond? Is that pine tree supposed to go there? I don't think that pine tree is supposed to go there. There's no signage indicating where you need to go, like the game will give you multiple options on your track, but only one right answer. You can turn left or right here, might as well take the right, and then, oh, look at that, you're in a wall. The game lets you drive up some stairs, or you can keep going down the city road, but only one will progress you further. And just look at this poor sap. He didn't make a jump and he just got stuck here for the entire race. And these tracks are so short. This Vegas level feels like I'm just driving around a block looking for a parking spot. And while I love seeing the 3D effect, the game is somehow uglier than the Game Boy Color Cruis'n game. Just look at this mess. Why are there so many corridors? Oh yeah, that's what I think of when I think of Ireland. Cave tunnels with fluorescent lights. And these touchy little controls. You turn left or right too much and you're gonna spin out. And this game requires a lot of sharp turns. And other times just has these big obnoxious hazards just right in the middle of the track. And if you spin out, smack into something or fall into water, you're done. You're not gonna catch up with anybody. It's no fun. It's a sloppy product. It's a really bad game. I'll be honest guys, this game got a half hour out of me and that's all I'm ever going to give it. There's cups, there's a championship mode, it's all the same tracks, it's all the same hideous gameplay, and it's just an awful experience. I could not manage any better than 8th place in anything I race, and I'm not going to spend any more time trying to do better. These games aren't fun, but man, they are fun to look at. They're horrible, but they try to do things with their systems that are so completely different from anything else in the series, and they push their hardware in interesting ways. Just don't play these games to get the cruising experience. The arcade games are dumb fun, and these are just dumb. They're interesting tech demos, nothing more. And with that, we have yet another mini review done. You gotta learn something about a weird little game, and if you have any suggestions or thoughts about what I should cover, just let me know. I'll see you next week with something that's not in the car.